Welcome back to the Audacity of Him, the channel where we dive into the most mind-boggling, jaw-dropping, and hilariously infuriating stories of men who thought they held all the cards only to realize they were playing Go Fish while the rest of us were playing 3D chess. Today's story comes to us from the corporate trenches. It's a tale of stolen credit, too tight sports coats over hoodies, weaponized incompetence, and a plate of just desserts so sweet it will give you a cavity. While the names have been changed to protect the innocent and to prevent the guilty from suing me, this is based on a very true, very satisfying story submitted by a viewer we'll call Chloe. Grab a coffee, settle in, and let's talk about a guy named Bradford. To understand the sheer magnitude of Bradford's audacity, you first need to understand the ecosystem in which he thrived. Chloe worked as a senior project manager for a mid-sized tech logistics firm in Seattle. She was the kind of employee who kept the company's blood pumping. If there was a spreadsheet that needed color coding, a vendor who needed wrangling, or a catastrophic software bug that needed immediate fixing at 2:00 a.m. on a Sunday, Chloe was the one doing it. Bradford, on the other hand, was the Director of Strategic Initiatives. Nobody, not even the CEO, entirely knew what that meant. Bradford was a walking, talking LinkedIn post. He was 32, possessed the kind of aggressive jawline that usually belongs on a cartoon villain, and wore suit jackets over hoodies indoors, regardless of the season. He spoke exclusively in corporate buzzwords. He didn't talk to people, he touched base offline. He didn't have ideas, he shifted paradigms. He didn't understand things, he double-clicked on the synergy. But Bradford's true talent wasn't in strategy or initiatives. His superpower was taking 99% of someone else's hard work, adding a single comma, and then presenting it to the executive leadership as his own visionary masterpiece. For the first 2 years Chloe worked there, Bradford was a persistent mosquito. He would routinely swoop into her projects right at the finish line. He'd send emails to the executive team saying things like, "Hey everyone, just wanted to share the Q2 analytics report that I've been driving. Chloe was a great help in gathering the raw data for me. Teamwork makes the dream work." Chloe, of course, had written the entire 40-page report, analyzed the data, formatted the charts, and literally printed it out. Bradford's only contribution was carrying it from the printer to the boardroom. Chloe complained to her boss, a chronically exhausted VP named David. David would just sigh, rub his temples, and say, "Chloe, you know how Bradford is. He plays golf with the CEO. Just keep your head down. Your work speaks for itself." But in corporate America, work doesn't speak for itself. The guy with the loudest voice and the most expensive golf clubs speak for it. Chloe bided her time. She started documenting everything. She saved every email, tracked every version history on Google Drive, and quietly built an ironclad fortress of receipts. She knew Bradford's ego would eventually outgrow his non-existent skill set. She just had to wait for him to step on a rake. She didn't know he was about to jump on a landmine. The company landed the biggest contract in its history, a massive overhaul of the supply chain software for a Fortune 500 retail giant. Internally, it was called Project Apex. Whoever successfully launched Project Apex was guaranteed a promotion to VP, a massive year-end bonus, and equity in the company. Because Project Apex actually required hard work, David assigned it to Chloe. She was named lead project manager. For 6 grueling months, Chloe practically lived at the office. She coordinated with the lead software developer, a brilliant, highly cynical guy named Gordy, who communicated entirely through heavy sighs and sarcasm. Together, Chloe and Gordy built a beautiful, streamlined, highly functional live data dashboard. It was a masterpiece of coding and project management. Bradford, predictably, was nowhere to be found during these 6 months. He was busy ideating at off-site networking lunches. Then came November. The project was 95% complete. The final hurdle was a massive presentation to their CEO, Richard, and the entire executive board of the client company. If the presentation went well, the contract was locked, and the VP promotion was secured. Suddenly, Bradford smelled blood in the water. He realized the heavy lifting was done, and it was time for the glory. 3 weeks before the presentation, Bradford started showing up to Chloe's stand-up meetings. He started chiming in with unhelpful, vague suggestions. Are we sure this dashboard has enough pop? We need to make sure we're telling a story with the data. Let's really drill down on the UX narrative. Gordy, the lead dev, looked at Bradford like he was a moldy piece of fruit. Chloe just took notes, nodded, and ignored him. But Bradford was scheming. A week before the big pitch, Chloe came into the office to find an email from David, her boss. Bradford was CC'd. The email read, "Hi, Chloe. Bradford and I had a long chat yesterday. Given the massive stakes of the Project Apex pitch, we've decided it's best if Bradford takes over as the point person for the final presentation. He has the executive presence needed to land this whale. You've done a great job on the administrative back end, but we need Bradford to drive the narrative. Please hand over all presentation materials, the slide deck, and the demo environment credentials to him by the end of the day. To reward you for your hard work, I'm mandating that you take next Thursday and Friday off to rest. You've earned it." Chloe stared at the screen. The presentation was scheduled for Friday morning. They were literally forcing her to use paid time off so she wouldn't even be in the building when Bradford presented her project to the CEO and the clients, guaranteeing he would get 100% of the credit. The audacity of him. It wasn't just theft, it was a carefully orchestrated corporate assassination. Chloe felt the hot sting of tears behind her eyes. She stood up, ready to march into David's office and quit on the spot. But then she looked across the open plan office. She saw Bradford leaning against a water cooler, twirling a golf tee between his fingers, laughing loudly at his own joke. The tears stopped. A cold, absolute clarity washed over her. Bradford wanted the keys to the castle, but Bradford didn't know how to drive the carriage. He didn't know how to lower the drawbridge, and he certainly didn't know about the moat full of alligators. Chloe sat back down. She opened a chat window with Gordy, the lead developer. Chloe. "Gordy, Bradford is taking over the Apex presentation. They're making me take PTO on Friday." Gordy. "Are you kidding me? That empty suit doesn't even know what an API is. He thinks HTML is a medical condition." Chloe. "I know. He demanded all the files and the demo credentials. He wants to run the live dashboard simulation himself in front of the board." Gordy. "He's going to crash it. It requires a secure VPN tunnel to access the live client data. You have to run the terminal script to fetch the keys before you open the browser. He won't know how to do that." Chloe. "I know." There was a long pause in the chat. Gordy. So what happens if he just clicks the dashboard URL without connecting to the VPN and authenticating the backend? Chloe. It defaults to the developer sandbox environment. Gordy. The sandbox. The one the dev team uses to test character limits and error codes? Chloe. Exactly. Gordy. The devs fill that sandbox with absolute garbage. We use it to blow off steam. Chloe. I am aware. Do not change a single thing in that sandbox. In fact, make sure it's up to date. Gordy. I am going to buy you so many drinks. Chloe set to work. If Bradford wanted to be the boss, she was going to treat him exactly like one. She was going to practice the dark art of malicious compliance. She drafted an email to Bradford. She made sure to BCC her personal email address just for the archives. Hi, Bradford. Per David's email, I am handing over the Project Apex reins to you. Attached is the final PowerPoint deck. Below is the URL for the live dashboard demonstration. Please note, because the dashboard pulls live proprietary client data, it requires a secure VPN tunnel to function correctly. I have attached a 3-page PDF outlining the terminal commands you need to run on your machine prior to the presentation to authenticate the data stream. If you need me to walk you through this, or if you'd like me to set it up on your laptop before I leave on my mandated PTO, please let me know. I want to make sure you are fully supported. She hit send. Now the trap was set. She had explicitly warned him in writing about the technical requirements. 10 minutes later, Bradford strutted over to her desk. He didn't even sit down. He just loomed over her, sipping from a Yeti tumbler. Hey, Closter, he said, using a nickname she actively despised. Got your email. Look, don't worry your pretty little head about all this VPN terminal command nonsense. I'm not doing the presentation on a clunky company laptop. I'm doing it from my personal iPad Pro. It's way cleaner, better optics, more Steve Jobs, you know? Chloe blinked. Bradford, you can't run the terminal script on your personal iPad. It won't authenticate. Without the VPN, the URL will only point to the developer sandbox. It won't show the real logistics data. Bradford waved his hand dismissively. It's a website, Chloe. You just click the link and it loads. Stop trying to throw up roadblocks just because you're salty about being benched. I'm the idea guy. I don't need back-end nerd stuff. I just need the front-end UI to pop. Does the link open the dashboard? Yes or no? Yes, the link opens the dashboard interface, Chloe said carefully. Great, then that's all I need. Enjoy your long weekend. Try to get a massage or something. You look stressed. He tapped her desk twice and walked away. Chloe immediately turned back to her computer and wrote an email to her boss, David, CCing Bradford. Hi, David. Just confirming a conversation Bradford and I just had at my desk. I offered to configure his device for the secure VPN required to access the live Apex data. Bradford has declined this setup and has opted to present using his personal iPad, stating that he only needs the front-end link. I have provided him the link as requested. Wishing him the best of luck on Friday. David replied 2 minutes later. Thanks, Chloe. Bradford has this handled. Enjoy your time off. Bradford replied a minute after that. Thanks for the support, Chloe. We're going to crush this. #Synergy. Chloe printed the entire email chain, folded it neatly, and placed it in her briefcase. She packed up her desk, waved goodbye to Gordy, and walked out into the crisp Seattle air feeling lighter than she had in months. Friday morning arrived. Chloe was sitting at a trendy brunch spot in Capitol Hill, sipping a mimosa and eating Eggs Benedict. Her phone was face up on the table. Back at Tech Solutions, Inc., the atmosphere in the executive boardroom was electric. Richard, the CEO, was sitting at the head of the long mahogany table, flanked by 3 grim-faced executives from the client's side. David was sweating nervously in the corner. At the front of the room stood Bradford. He was in his element. He was wearing a brand new, unnecessarily tight navy suit. His iPad was plugged into the massive 40-inch 4K monitor on the wall behind him. "Ladies and gentlemen," Bradford began, flashing a $1 million smile, "supply chain logistics is no longer just about getting point A to point B. It's about the journey. It's about shifting the paradigm of how we view global inventory. Today, I am proud to show you what I have been building for the last 6 months. I give you Project Apex." He clicked a button on his presentation clicker. The PowerPoint transitioned smoothly. For the first 20 minutes, Bradford was actually doing well. Of course, he was literally just reading the slides Chloe had written, but he read them with such confidence. Then came the centerpiece of the pitch. "Now," Bradford said, unbuttoning his suit jacket with a flourish, "PowerPoints are great, but I don't want to just tell you about the future. I want to show you. I am going to log into the Apex dashboard right now, and we are going to look at your real-time global inventory." The client executives leaned forward, genuinely interested. This was the selling point. Bradford minimized the PowerPoint. He tapped the Safari icon on his iPad. He clicked the bookmark Chloe had given him. The screen went white for a second. The Apex logo, beautifully designed, spun in the center of the 80-inch screen. Bradford turned his back to the screen, facing the executives with a smug grin. "What you are about to see is the culmination of my strategic vision." Behind him, the dashboard loaded. Because Bradford was on his personal iPad on the guest Wi-Fi without the VPN tunnel, the system instantly recognized an unauthenticated user. It did exactly what it was programmed to do. It bypassed the live client server and connected directly to the developer sandbox database. The sandbox database was where Gordy and his team of overworked, underpaid, highly cynical software engineers tested their code. They didn't use real names or real products. They used whatever popped into their heads. And Gordy had spent Thursday afternoon making some very specific updates. The massive 80-inch screen illuminated with the dashboard. At the top, instead of reading Client Global Logistics Hub, the header read, "Apex Testing Environment. Abandon hope, all ye who enter here." The CEO, Richard, stopped mid-sip of his water. He frowned. Bradford, still facing the board, didn't notice. "As you can see, the UI is incredibly intuitive. Let's look at your current highest volume freight shipments across the Pacific." Bradford tapped his iPad to open the Live Active Shipments tab without looking at the screen behind him. The map of the world populated. 3 massive red shipping lines appeared. A text box in size 48 font hovered over the Pacific Ocean. Shipment number 001, 50,000 metric tons of blinker fluid. Destination, Bradford's empty head. Status, delayed due to incompetence. One of the client executives, a stern woman in her 50s, slowly took off her reading glasses. "Excuse me, what is blinker fluid?" Bradford chuckled. thinking it was a rhetorical question about his presentation. "It's all about smooth transitions, Sarah," he beamed, finally turning around to point at the screen. Bradford froze. The blood drained from his face so fast he looked like a marble statue. He stared at the screen. Below the blinker fluid shipment, the secondary shipments were listed. Shipment number 002, 14,000 rubber chickens for the CEO. Shipment 003, 1 ounce of respect for the dev team. Out of stock. Bradford stammered. His perfectly styled hair suddenly seemed to wilt. There seems to be a slight glitch in the matrix. Just a visual bug." His hand trembled as he frantically tapped the screen, trying to navigate away from the map. He clicked on Employee Roster and Permissions. The screen updated. A massive table appeared. User ID 01, Chloe, status, carrying this entire company on her back. User ID 02, Gordy, status, currently drinking under his desk. User ID 03, Bradford, status, parasite, clearance level, toddler. The room was so quiet you could hear the hum of the air conditioner. David, the VP, was pale and sweating profusely. "Bradford, what is this?" he hissed. I don't know," Bradford panicked. The slick corporate buzzword machine broke down completely. He started jabbing his finger at the iPad screen. "It's hacked. We've been hacked. Chloe did this. She sabotaged me because she was jealous." Richard, the CEO, stood up. He was not a man who appreciated rubber chickens. "Bradford, you told me you built this. You told me you were running point. Why does your own software refer to you as a parasite?" "It's Chloe!" Bradford yelled, his voice cracking. He grabbed his phone off the podium. "I'm calling her right now. I'm putting her on speaker. She did this!" Back at the brunch spot, Chloe had just finished her Eggs Benedict when her phone rang. The caller ID said Bradford, urgent. She took a sip of her mimosa, cleared her throat, and answered, putting it on speakerphone so she could record it on her smartwatch. "Hello, this is Chloe," she said in her brightest, most professional voice. "Chloe!" Bradford's voice echoed out of the phone, bouncing off the walls of the executive boardroom for all the clients to hear. "What did you do to the dashboard? It's full of garbage. Fix it right now." Chloe didn't miss a beat. "Oh, hi, Bradford. Are you in the pitch right now? How exciting," she chirped. "I'm a bit confused, though. What do you mean by garbage? Are you not seeing the live client data?" "No, I am not seeing the client data. I am seeing a shipment of blinker fluid," he shrieked. "Oh, no. Bradford, are you using your personal iPad without the VPN tunnel?" Chloe asked, sounding incredibly innocent and deeply concerned. The boardroom was silent. What? Yes, like I told you I would. Fix the link." "Oh, Bradford," Chloe sighed, projecting maximum pity. "We talked about this. I emailed you on Wednesday and we discussed it at my desk. Remember? You told me you didn't want to deal with the nerd stuff and that you didn't need a secure VPN because you were the idea guy. I emailed David to confirm you refused the security setup." Bradford stammered. "Without the VPN tunnel, the system correctly identifies an unsecured, unauthorized device and routes you to the developer sandbox. It's a fundamental security feature I built to protect the client's proprietary data from unsecured devices, like personal iPads. You're looking at the sandbox data." From the phone, Chloe heard a deep, booming voice. It was Richard, the CEO. "Chloe, this is Richard. Chloe sat up straight. Good morning, Richard. You're telling me Bradford deliberately bypassed our security protocols despite your written warnings to use an unsecured personal device in front of our biggest client? Yes, Richard, Chloe said calmly. I forwarded the email chain to David on Wednesday at 2:15 p.m. confirming this. I offered to set up his laptop, but he explicitly declined. There was a heavy, suffocating silence on the other end of the line. Chloe, Richard said, his voice terrifyingly calm. Where are you right now? I am on mandated paid time off, Richard. David insisted I take Thursday and Friday off so Bradford could handle the presentation without distractions. Another pause, a brutal one. I see, Richard said. Chloe, enjoy your time off. Bradford, disconnect your toy from my screen and come to my office. Now. David, you too. We are going to apologize to our guests, and then we are going to have a very long talk about the definition of strategic initiatives. The line went dead. Chloe smiled, flagged down the waiter, and ordered another mimosa. The aftermath was a bloodbath, but a beautiful one. The client executives, initially horrified, were actually incredibly impressed by the automated security routing. The fact that the system recognized an unsecured iPad and instantly walled off their proprietary data proved the software was bulletproof. They signed the contract the following Monday. They did, however, demand that Bradford never be allowed near their account. That wasn't going to be a problem. Bradford was fired before lunch that same Friday. Security escorted him out of the building. He was carrying his hoodie in a cardboard box, looking utterly defeated. He tried to claim wrongful termination, but HR simply produced the paper trail Chloe had meticulously curated. The emails, the documented refusal of security protocols, and the logs showing he had contributed zero code or documentation to Project Apex. David, the VP who had enabled Bradford for years, was given a severe formal reprimand and stripped of his bonus. He was told in no uncertain terms that his judgment was flawed and his department was under review. When Chloe returned to the office on Monday, there was a bouquet of flowers on her desk. They were from Richard, the CEO. By Wednesday, Richard called her into his office. He had reviewed the version histories, the audit logs, and the email chains. It was blatantly obvious who the actual brains behind Project Apex was. Chloe walked out of that office with the title of Vice President of Logistics Technology, a 40% pay bump, and her own office. Her first act as VP? She gave Gordy, the lead dev, a massive raise and let him buy a $2,000 espresso machine for the dev team break room. As for Bradford, he updated his LinkedIn a few weeks later. He is now the founder and chief paradigm officer of a cryptocurrency startup that currently has 3 followers. We can only assume he's still wearing the hoodies and suit coats. And that, my friends, is the absolute audacity of him. Let this be a lesson to all the Bradfords out there. You can steal the slides, you can steal the spotlight, but if you don't know how the engine works, you are going to crash the car. And to all the Chloes watching, keep your receipts, back up your emails, and never, ever be afraid to let a fool use his own rope. If you love this story of corporate karma as much as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Have you ever had to deal with a Bradford in your workplace? Did you get your revenge? Let me know your best malicious compliance stories down in the comments below, and you might just be featured in our next video. Until next time, stay sharp, keep your paper trails long, and don't let anyone steal your credit. See you later.